What's up, everybody, and welcome to the No BS Real Estate Show, a podcast that gives you an inside look on how to make smart financial decisions while adding value to your life. I'm Matty Miller with ERA Real Estate, alongside my co-host and real estate investor extraordinaire, Ryan Robbins. Whether you're a long-time investor or a first-time buyer, join us as we dig through the everyday bullshit of real estate. Put that coffee down, Ryan Robbins. You should be past coffee. It's 9:30 this morning. We are live on the No BS Real Estate Show. Number 20. I don't know what the number is.
23.
23? Is that what we're on? Okay.
Yeah. 23
episodes. We are getting there and producing. It's actually episode 24. You lied. Or we skipped 22. One of the two. According to my handy dandy cell phone here, it says 23 was the last one. But there's
we missed the Tuesday one last week, and that one we pre-recorded and sent out, which was supposed to be 23.
We never did 22.
Never did 22.
There you go. So technically, this is episode 22, going backwards one. So
yeah, how are we gonna post this? It's gonna post as what?
We'll post it as episode 22 on Tuesday. I don't know. It'll be fine. It'll be really confusing when they're like, oh, 23, and then after that's 22. Okay. Anyway.
All right. Makes sense.
So some housekeeping stuff. The illustrious chase of the Amazon gift card. $25. We have given people multiple times to get in touch with us. Therefore, we're going to do the drawing right now. And I'm throwing you for a curveball on this because I didn't even talk about doing this before we actually got there. So we're going to do the drawing.
Last I knew, we had 3 emails.
We still have 3 emails. So we're going to do this, okay? And I'm going to shuffle these 3 handy-dandy note cards up, okay? And I'm going to put them like this. The names are down, so you can't see them, right? Okay, I have no idea what they are. We're going to shuffle them up, and you're going to tell me which one to pick. Okay, so you're going to say right. Oh, I looked at them again. Sorry, I'm going to shuffle them up again here. I didn't mean to.
It doesn't really matter if you look at them because I'm picking.
That's a good point. Good point. So right, left, or middle?
So it's going to be. I'm going to go make it easy for you. I'm going to say middle.
Middle. Winner of a $25 Amazon gift card from the No BS Real Estate Podcast.
Oh boy, who is
Mr. Dan E.
Dan E.
Don't want to give out his real name. He is located somewhere out in California. I don't know. He gallivants around between wine country and LA. I don't know what he really does, to be honest with you. I have no clue, but a good friend of mine. So congratulations, Dan.
Dan, thanks for the email.
Dan, thanks for listening. He actually sent us an email. He actually sent us a Facebook response that he actually enjoys the podcast. We don't try to sell anything to him. We just talk about real estate and we don't sell shit. So we'll keep it that way, by the way. So anyway, the last one.
Let's go your left. So
my left. So this one?
Yep.
Okay. Lauren.
Woohoo.
Congratulations, Lauren T. Ooh, speaking of which, she's calling me right now.
Let her know she just won.
Hopefully.
If only we were live.
Hey, Lauren.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, guess what? You're live on the No BS Real Estate Podcast for real, though.
Hello.
Yeah, by the way, you just won $25 on the Amazon gift card.
Oh, sweet.
You just won $25. So I'll give that to you in about a month.
I love it.
About a month.
I'll give that to you in about a month. Let me call you back.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll call you later. Enjoy your day. I will call you as soon as we're done with this show, and we'll figure out a way to spend your $25.
That's easy.
Don't spend it all in one place, right?
I won't.
Okay. All right. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Unless that one place is Amazon.
Yep, unless that one place is Amazon. So, which kind of has to be. There's no other
You don't got a choice.
ways around that. So, congratulations to our winner, Dan and Lauren. Dan, I will reach out to you here this week. And actually, I'm going to wait until he hears that he won to contact me because that ensures that he's still listening.
Ooh.
So, I mean, if he doesn't listen to the episode, any of our episodes ever again, then he doesn't know he won, and I'm not going to send it to him.
That was it.
Yeah. I mean, I will. If he calls me out, I'm going to send it to him for sure. But I want to ensure that you're listening. So, because I don't know, just kind of feel like I should. So, but we will get it to you.
Testing. Okay. What else we got?
All right. So we are talking about, that was housekeeping was it. That was it. So I wanted to get that off the table. We've been trying to do that giveaway for God knows how long, since Labor Day, I think.
Just fishing
midway through the summer. But anyway, today we are talking about, and I probably should have led with this one, 11 maintenance items to look out for when purchasing a home. Not only when purchasing a home, but also kind of like ongoing maintenance issues, just kind of keeping track of, hey, what you're going to have to do when you do it, things like that. And we're going to break down basically different areas of the home that you need to keep track of. Knowing the age of, for example, number one is roof. Knowing the age of your roof is very important. I've been going through a as-is deal where no one apparently knows how old the roof is. Well, we had a contract. We pulled the permit, see when the last roof was. Guess what? It's 12 years old. But no one wanted to sign on the dotted line to say that, oh, the roof's 12 years old. No one wanted to sign that. Okay. It was as is. It was a foreclosure. No one wanted to be in hot water. Like, guys, just pull the permit.
Yeah.
Okay. 12 years old.
Well,
okay. We get it.
To that, when you're having a roof done, get a permit, because if you don't get a permit and then you go try to sell it and you don't remember, you don't have a receipt, whatever, now you've got no proof. At least you guys could prove that it was done 12 years ago. I'd rather know that it was done 12 years ago than know that.
Estimate it. Yeah. Oh, it's about 10 years old.
Yeah, or, hey, it's got about, 5 years left.
Left of life.
But that's just, I'd rather know for sure than take that guess. So
I had a really weird yawn that just came on. That was strange. So roof, when I go out to a property and I'm looking for a buyer, per se, roof's probably the first thing that I look at. And I actually was showing, the Lauren that just won the card, I was showing her some houses, a couple weeks ago, and we were watching. She's like, well, how do you know so much about roofs? And I'm like, because I was looking, I was like, oh, that roof's old. Oh, that one's been replaced. That one's been replaced. That one's old, blah, blah, blah. And it's so simple that I guess I didn't realize, the average person didn't realize the difference between a 3-tab shingle and architectural shingle. And you can just look at it and know that it's new or not. And I realized that I guess I look at them a lot more than other people. So I guess I know. And I don't realize that that's, I guess, knowledge that you gain over being in the business for a while. But definitely look at roof, figure it out. Hey, it looks okay. It looks fine. And roof's one of those things that you can kind of tell from just looking at it, how it is.
The missing shingles, are they, lifted in certain spots?
Is there any kind of waviness going on? If there's waviness going on and things like that, you're probably looking at some age.
Any wood rot under the soffits?
Yep. As I say, you can look at what's around the plumbing boots or the ridge vents, things like that. How clean is kind of the work look, things like that. So roof's one of those things that personally, I would never buy a house if it didn't have more than 5 years left.
Or you can get a price on it, but
correct. Yeah. And I'm going to ask for some kind of concessions, whether it's 25% or whatever, in hopes that in the state that we live in, that we get a major storm and we get it replaced by insurance, in hopes that we just get a free 25% negotiation on the roof because it is older. So I'm definitely going to go after that. Anything else you got on roofs?
What's
Not really.
Here?
Number 2, and probably the most important for us and where we live in, and really for anybody, because I put the HVAC, the HVAC system. So for you not familiar with what an HVAC system, that is literally an air conditioning system. But it is, I don't even know what HVAC stands for, to be honest with you. Heating, ventilation, air conditioning. Yeah. So, man, I could figure it out. But not only are we talking about HVACs, we're also talking about furnaces. So whatever part of the country you're in, obviously, in the South, we have a lot of AC systems. In the northern parts of the country, you definitely want to check on the furnace, typically natural gas furnace. Not a lot of electric furnaces up there. We have, obviously, electric runs off of for our HVAC here.
A lot of oil. oil up there.
Oil? See, we didn't have oil where I grew up. Ours was mostly natural gas. Oil, gas, huh? Or oil heat, I guess, right? I mean, we're talking like kerosene?
No, I mean it's like a type of. It's not like a thick motor oil. You.
That's what I'm thinking of.
You think of oil, you think it's like a thick. No, it's more. I don't know. It's a fuel, like almost I say diesel. I'm gonna not talk about what type of fuel it takes. Oil. Call it oil.
So my question is, how do you get the oil to the house?
You call up a company and they come deliver it.
Okay, and then stored in a
tank.
Outside.
Stored in old milk jugs, and you just fill it up.
You just fill it up when you need it.
You got to run back to the house and put the oil back in now.
The tank is it like a propane tank?
Yeah, it's essentially like a large tank. People have them either in their garage, sometimes out in the yard.
Okay.
But somewhere
it's like a propane tank.
Yeah, exactly. And You've got a little fuel gauge on it, and you get down. Generally, it'll last you. Sometimes you got to fill up. Sometime throughout the winter.
Yeah.
When prices are nice and high.
Where I grew up, we had natural gas piped into our house, so everything was always piped in from the city. So you had natural gas going into every pipe, and most of our heaters were natural gas in the Midwest.
Do you have baseboard heating?
No. Well, the houses that I grew up in, the houses that I grew up in, one was built in the 1870s, so very, very, very old. So we had old furnace ducts that were in the floor, and they had these massive cast iron grates that covered the little area, and that's the way it was. So the furnace was down in the basement, and they just pushed all the heat up through those, and then upstairs always got colder. Because in order the ducts to get to upstairs, it didn't really get there, because it was such old small ducts and through these old plaster walls. It was always a little bit chillier upstairs, which is funny because heat rises, right? Well, heat rises, but this house had 11 or 10.5-foot ceilings. I mean, it was a huge, beautiful old house. My mom loved that place, so. She was kind of heartbroken when she sold it and moved to Florida, but she sold it and hasn't really regretted it, I guess, other than a few times, I'm sure. But so it was an old furnace. Most of your homes now have a furnace, like your newer homes in the Midwest, I think. Someone can correct me on this, but they have a central heating and air system that's very similar, forced air type, but more than our heat strip heating that we have in Florida.
Yeah.
Which is basically just these little coils inside your AC system that heat up and then they blow air over it and it gets kind of warm. Not really that much warmer. So again, we see a lot of houses that we go into with 15, 20-year-old HVAC systems and people don't replace them. A lot of people do replace them. So I feel like it's one or the other. And honestly, given the quality of the manufacturers that they've been producing lately, I just feel like anything older than 10 to 12 years right now just needs to be replaced.
You plan on it. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that, you get to 10 years on some of these systems. You don't know how it was taken care of. It may not last for much longer. So if it gets to over 10 years, I'm like, might last for 5 more, might last for 5 more weeks. Don't know, So we're going to ask for that negotiation.
It comes down to preventative maintenance too. So make sure you're cleaning your filters and your coils. So
I think once a year,
every 3 months, maybe get your coils cleaned every year.
Yep. I think once a year, I think you need to get your coils cleaned. I think once a year, you need to, and the coils cleaned don't necessarily have to be 1 year. If the filters are being changed legitimately, it might be 2 or 3 years where you really need to clean your coils. Because if you're keeping the filter in there clean and changed, dirt shouldn't get on your coils. That's the whole point. So we could talk about HVAC systems for another 20 minutes, but I don't really want to because I talk about them all the time every day. So we'll move on from that. But definitely want to check up on your HVAC system and your furnace. And this is kind of first time buyer stuff too. It's stuff that you may not know or stuff that you may just not think about when you're buying houses. It's just one of those things that comes up. Oh, everything looks fine to me. Well, not really. So
it plays on both sides because not only is it something to look for as a buyer, but as a seller, again, if you're going to sell your house in a few years, keep that preventative maintenance up, keep your filters changed, keep your roof clean, things like that. That's going to
if you get it serviced every year. Yeah, if you get your AC serviced every year, keep the receipts.
Yeah,
Yeah, keep the receipts. I mean, is anybody going to really, really care to look at your receipts for your HVAC? No, but if you say, "Hey, just by the way, we have all the receipts for it," I may not look at them. I'm like, okay, if you have all the receipts for them, I'm probably not going to check it, but I'm just going to say, okay.
But you're going to be one of the only people that's ever been like, oh, here's a packet of
Yeah, here's a packet of all my
done,
receipts.
you know,
Yeah,
the roof,
exactly.
the HVAC, the plumbing, whatever. And people are going to be like, damn, this house has been kept up with.
He's really taking care of this place, or she's really taking care of this place. So yeah, definitely for sure. So another thing, moving on to number 3 on the list, is siding materials / exterior. And what I mean by that is we have a lot of the worst building material of all time, and we have some of the best building materials of all time. We have concrete block on the best side, and we have the worst, which is T111. And we have a new thing now, by the way, which is all across the world. I don't know about world, but at least the United States, is hardy siding, particularly hardy lap siding. And we're going to talk about basically T111 and what that is for people that don't know what it is. T111 is approximately a half to a quarter inch thick, basically cheap ass plywood. That's exactly what it is. It's treated. It's cut into long, typically 8-foot sheets.
Yeah, 4x8.
4x8 sheets. And it is stuff that is ultimately going to rot. There's no way to get around it. It's going to last for typically 15 to 20 years, sometimes less, depending on how much sun the house gets, how much, everything else that goes into it. It's just very, very, very high maintenance to have to replace your siding every, 15 years. That just sounds like a pain in the ass. Compared to something like concrete block or brick or some kind of masonry material, that stuff stands kind of forever. And it is the interior of your wall, and it is also the exterior of your wall. So there's all that stuff is, taken care of for a long time. Like we just put hardy board in our house. I'm on the 2 sides, and I have a cedar front. The back is T111 because it was already replaced. They replaced it before they left, and then I did the 2 sides with hardy board. So the hardy board will be good for what they're saying now is 50 years is what they're saying. Hardy board, like lap siding, is good for 50 years. I mean, that seems long to me. I don't know, but it's a fairly new product to the market, so kind of got to test the time, I guess, right?
Certainly better than the wood. Certainly better than the T111. So,
and it's not that much. It's not that much more expensive. That's the weird part, because it's just the labor of install. Whether you're using this material or that material. I mean, it's more expensive. Don't get me wrong. I think I spent like $7,000 on the 2 sides, and I probably, if I'd have done hardy board, I could have done it for like $5,500. Mm-hmm. But somebody's still got to put it up, nail it all in, rip off the old stuff, blah 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 blah. They still have to do all that.
It's still essentially the same. It's just the cost of the material.
Correct. Yep. So
to that, if you're looking at a house, if you have T111 on it, are you running away from it? No, it's just something to be more aware of. Again, bugs getting up inside of it, any sort of WDO. So wood destroying organism, which includes any sort of insect or water intrusion. So oftentimes you'll see on T111, they go up a foot or 2 and they zip it off, and then they put a piece of, Z flashing, and they put a new piece of T111 back up because that part's rotted off from the wood, the water splashing up off the ground onto the side of the house.
Correct. So, yeah. So
one of the things we get down here, I don't know other parts of the country that may have it, but asbestos siding. So
we have it. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got it a lot. Oftentimes you see it gets covered up with vinyl siding. Everyone hears asbestos and freaks out. Look, if you're not going to change it and it's in good condition, you're fine. Is it ideal? No, but it's not doing anybody any harm there. It's been there for, 50 plus years. It's not going anywhere. Now, if you need to tear it off and replace it, it's going to cost you a pretty penny.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, as long as it's in good condition, you don't need to worry.
Asbestos is not harmful, but asbestos siding a roof is not harmful, but asbestos in the air is when it becomes harmful. Yeah, when it crumbles and just.
So the other thing, not to go too off here, but in regards to asbestos, when the house I bought last year, I was going to take the popcorn ceilings down and do knockdown. I was unaware that asbestos was in popcorn ceilings. That's your, yeah. So homes built
As I'm
before,
looking up at my house built in 1984 that has popcorn ceilings on it.
yeah, well, no. So if it's before 73 or 74 is when they started to wean that out.
Oh, okay.
So you've got asbestos in your popcorn. So as I'm doing it, they're like, oh, you can take some, scrape it down and send it in, so on and so forth. And you get it tested. And I'm like, I'm going to just buy the best filter I can, as far as a mask goes, seal everything up. And the company I was talking to in regards to coming out and physically doing it, they're like, if you can do it yourself, it's not a big deal. It's the amount of times you're exposed to asbestos, apparently.
Okay.
So obviously, it's not like you want to sit in a room full of asbestos. That's probably not the best idea.
But
But if you were to scrape a ceiling and you breathed in a little bit, now don't take this for anything from as opposed to what I'm saying. Don't go out and breathe asbestos. But they basically said you need to be exposed to it for, I don't know, 20 times over a certain amount of period for it to start to affect you.
Okay.
So these people that do it every day, they need to take those precautions. If it's like you're going to go do it one time, at least from what they said, hey, you're okay.
You're probably going to be fine. Yeah. Well, it's just like anything in life. The more beer and burgers that you eat, the fatter you're going to get. But if you only have a beer and a burger every, once a month, probably going to be okay. Okay. But if you're eating, 2 Burger King Whoppers every day and drinking 6 beers a night, your health is probably going to decline pretty quickly. Yeah. So not that I'm like the poster boy of health, but by any stretch of the imagination, but I do try. I ate a Native Son yesterday, which by the way is a health food market, people. Okay. So that's getting it for me.
If you do that once a month, you're not going to see the changes out of that. So
correct. I also ended up, because I was on a time crunch last night, I also ended up having a Dairy Queen 2 for $4 burger, $2 burgers for dinner last night. Because it was 8:30 and I got done with wrestling practice, and my the kid I was taking home said, hey, I really want food, I'll pay. And he bought me 2 burgers. And I was like, well, I'm not going to turn it down. kind of sounded good.
2 Wendy's burgers from a high school.
2 Dairy Queen burgers. So thank you.
Okay.
Anyway,
Number 4, we got to get through this.
Got off traffic here. More so plumbing, but I'm actually going to, plumbing, you obviously can't tell with the naked eye when you look at it. So obviously have it inspected. We're talking about water heater. You can obviously check a water heater overly is not a huge expense. It's about $750 to swap out a new one. At least down here.
Plumbing and the water heater.
Hold on. I'm getting to the main point, which is septics.
I was going to say, before you jump to septics, are these points like 3, 4, and 5, or what are these?
All 1 point.
These are all 1 points.
All 1 point. So this is plumbing systems.
So if you're going to go and look into a house, if you look on the water heater, that can be sometimes a good indication as far as the type of plumbing that's coming off that water heater, whether that's CPVC, galvanized pipe, or copper pipe. So the other thing, if you don't see it there, you can sometimes, again, look up underneath the sink, whatever's stubbed out of the wall. You can, depending on how far they're stubbed out, see if it's CPVC or copper or whatever that may be. So again, just from a quick visual, under sinks, by toilets, by the hot water heater, those are all some key spots you can find that. So,
and what's the best?
What's the best location to find it? I would say probably.
No, I'm saying what's the best type?
Oh, right now everything's CPVC.
Yep. So a lot of copper. That's typically pretty common in like 1975 to 1990-ish, somewhere in there.
90s. They probably went over that.
90s, somewhere in there.
Early 2000s, maybe.
At least in our area, they went to CPVC almost exclusively in the last 15 to 20 years. I don't know exactly where that cutoff was from 2000 to 2005, somewhere in there. Other than that, prior to that, you're looking at galvanized, which what people didn't realize about galvanized is the amount of buildup and corrosion that happens on those pipes. So
there's also lead in those.
There's also lead in those. Yes, correct. So if you're drinking out of galvanized pipes, you're probably getting some lead sediment into your body, which can cause lead poisoning. So yeah, I had a property owner one time, just quick story time here, that this property was built in probably 1960. had galvanized pipes, and still did, by the way. Original galvanized piping. This is 60 years later almost. Okay, this is 2015 probably when we were going through this. And I asked her, I said, hey, I sent a plumber out there. They were complaining about low water pressure. They were complaining about just kind of some nastiness coming through the water. And I'm like, so I sent it out, and the plumber goes, this is the first time I had this ask. Plumber goes, hey, there's galvanized pipes in the house still. And I'm like, really? Okay, well, that's not good. And the moral of the story is it was like, I don't know, it was going to be like $5,000 to repipe the whole house, somewhere in there, 5 to 7. I don't remember what the number was. And she's like, well, that's just too expensive. I'm not doing it. Okay, well, so I had a talk with a tenant, and I said, listen, they're not going to do it. I said, you're either going to deal with it, or you can break your lease full on if you want to. I said, in my opinion, as a property manager, I said, it's my job to protect the property owner. But if the property owner doesn't want to keep their property up, they've violated our contract, and I can cancel that contract. And ultimately, I guarantee you, if you're a tenant and you go to the court of law and they say, hey, by the way, we had galvanized pipes in this and we couldn't get any water pressure at all, our plumbing systems basically were not efficient, there's not an attorney in the world that's going to say, hey, nope, you owe the owner money, you got to pay that lease. There's not one. They don't exist. At least in Florida, they don't. Most attorneys are very, very, very pro-tenant and anti-landlord, most of them, because they automatically assume that you have a spare house. You have the money to fix it. Don't tell me you don't. And if you have a spare house and you don't have the money to fix it, you don't need to have a tenant. You need to sell the damn thing. Okay, that's what they're going to tell you. You don't need to be a landlord because you're not responsible for somebody else's well-being. So that's an issue. So moral of the story is I fired that client, and the tenant moved out like 3 weeks later. So problem solved. So, and I have no idea what happened after that. No clue. She probably rented it back out to some poor unsuspecting person and rented it herself, but whatever. So, but she was always a lady that wanted to nickel and dime me anyway and be like, I don't want to do this. And she sent some random person for an HVAC one time that wasn't licensed. And I'm like, yeah, you realize I can't do that? Like, so we had some arguments before, and it was like, yeah, I mean, I understand you're trying to save money, but if you don't want to do things the right way, then just don't even bother having a freaking rental property.
Not at all.
Just terrible. So, let's get to the more important topic of septics, but going back to hot water heaters, obviously you look on there, they have serial numbers on there with a date, typically a manufacturer date, so they're very easy to tell how old they are. The other side of that, if they have any corrosion on the top, on those pipes going in, a lot of times they'll have corrosion. That needs to be replaced, because also very close to that corrosion is electrical, where it hooks up, and that will start a problem. If water gets into that electrical, and you're just going to have some major issues. So moving on from that, let's go to septic tanks, our favorite story. Septics can be deceiving would be the proper term that I'm looking for. And I like the terms, I'm going to get a septic inspection. Here's the thing about a septic inspection. You're going to send a septic company out there, and you're going to say, hey, I need you to inspect the septic tank. Without actually digging up the entire septic tank and checking the entire drain field, okay, which you can't do, by the way. You can't just go dig one up if it's good. All they're going to do is look at the top. They're going to look at the fill, how much is actually in there. They're going to try to see if the drain field itself is draining.
Yeah, I was going to say they test the type of drain field, and then
yes,
dogs walking around bumping into everything here.
I saw you bumped your camera a second ago.
Yeah. So the other thing they're going to do, they're going to drain the tank, then they fill it up with whatever liquid, and they watch how it drains down, and it's supposed to drain X amount per
hour,
minute or whatever. And essentially they do the calculation and say the drain field's running properly.
Yes, correct. So, but without the exception of actually digging it up and checking to see if the tank itself has corrosion on the top, or there's holes in it, or things like that, you just don't know. So honestly, for a lot of people, they see septic and they run for the hills, because replacing a septic tank can cost you, depending on how big of a property you have, if you have to have a gray water system and whatever. A lot of times some of these older places had 2 separate septics. One was put in for, they put it back in the 1960s, and it was just for waste, in their brown water, I guess. And then you had, as dishwashers came along and washer and dryers, you put in another one because you couldn't just dump the chemicals of your washer, dryer, your dishwasher into the ground. You had another gray water system that was added. We were talking about a house specifically, and they had 2 septics, and they didn't disclose it, and they haven't disclosed it, and we know which one we're talking about, wholesalers.
Yeah.
And moving on from there, that to replace those 2 tanks and dig them all up and then redo the drain field, it's probably going to cost you somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000. I don't know about you, but I don't know a lot of new buyers who just have 10 grand sitting in the bank chilling. Because I know I don't. I mean, I wish I did, just for a septic tank. Don't have it, but septics can be very expensive. We've seen lawsuits over septic tanks, and whether it's not disclosed on the buyer side, whether, hey, we had an inspection or we chose not to get in a septic inspection. That's another one. Did you get a septic inspection? No, we didn't. You go to court, the attorney's going to go, well, why not?
Yeah.
Okay. This comes back to, if you are buying a house with a septic and your agent says, you don't need a septic tank, get a new agent. Okay. Find somebody that knows what the fuck they're doing.
Here's the other thing. So I'm selling a house for a lady right now who, when she bought it in 2007, was unaware that she was on a septic system until like 2 years ago during one of the big hurricanes that came through. A tree had fallen, smashed into the backyard, happened to hit the drain field. So all of a sudden now her whole system screwed up, didn't know what was going on. Hey, surprise, you're on a septic system. So this is 10 years after she bought her house. So I look back on the old MLS. It was never listed, never disclosed, nothing. So she truly had no idea. The short and sweet of how do you figure out if you're on city or if you're on septic? Call up your local utility company. Whoever's providing electric and water services there is going to provide sewer. So here in Jacksonville, we've got JEA. Simply call them up. Hey, I'm looking at purchasing, 123 Smith Street. Can you tell me what you supply? Oh, all right. You supply electric and water, no sewer. Guess what? It's on septic. If they say they provide sewer, then you're not on a septic system.
In places that are a little more wonky to where you may have multiple service providers, you definitely need to call a couple different people, obviously, because even in Jacksonville, there's a small little section over in the Normandy area that actually has their own gas lines piped in. Did you know this?
And they do sewer as well.
Yeah. Yep. So is it Normandy Utility Association or something like that? Is that what it's called? I think. So that's a little wonky one if you don't know where you're working at, that can kind of bite you in the ass, because we actually had a rental property at one point in time. This is years ago, that we told hey, the tenant went ahead and put water and electric, and I told him, hey, water, electric, sewer, put it in your name. And the tenant put water and electric in their name and sent me the confirmation, and I didn't even think twice to look at, did you get water here, water, electric, sewer? Well, they didn't get sewer. And this was a property that I inherited from someone else that went out of business in property management. So they called me. There was some kind of connection. I don't remember exactly what the situation was. But anyway, my dog's making weird noises under the table. So more of the story is, I didn't realize the house was on a septic tank until the owner told me like 3 weeks later. I was like, hey, by the way, the tenant called me and said they got a bill for a septic, or not a bill, or like a request for an inspection or something weird. And I was like, is that house on a septic? They're like, yeah. They're like, oh. I'm like, well, who runs the water? That's what it was. Sorry. Okay. So that's what it was. So they called to set it up. They called JA, and JA said we didn't service the water. That's what it was. They just did the electric, and then Normandy ran the water and they had a septic on it.
Okay.
So that was the situation on how we figured out. We were like, wait, what? Wait, who runs the water? Oh, really? And it's like a really small, tiny little area. It probably covers 2,000 properties.
Yeah.
Maybe 2,000 houses.
Shocking that they even still exist.
It's amazing to me. But anyway, I'm sure there's small towns that have different things like that you have to make. Hey, maybe you have a larger service provider and you have a smaller one, and you have an option of using whoever you want to. I know when I was, living in the Midwest that we had multiple energy companies, depending on where you're at. You had a couple different we had one water company where I grew up, but you also had a couple different gas companies you could use. So, anyway, I think we can beat septics to death. Get a septic inspection. Check them out. They are a little scary having to deal with them because you don't always know exactly how long they're going to last, what the drain field looks like, things like that. You don't always know. So, or the other option is to pay the amount of money to tie it into city sewer if you can. Might save you some money in the long run, but a lot of places don't even.
In the long run, yeah, oftentimes it costs almost as much to tie in as it does to just replace the system. But guess what? You're not replacing it again at that point. So.
Yeah, once you replace the system, you're good for, 30, 40 years, hopefully. So, and I assume that septic tanks are built a little bit better now than they used to be. Just a hunch.
I mean, if I had to take a guess based upon
maybe the opposite way,
how everything else is built today, I would say they're worse than what they were years
ago. If we're talking about refrigerators and cars, refrigerators, they want you to buy a new one every 4 years, 5 years, whatever. They're not going to make it as quality as they used to. So that's a whole other situation. We could dive down that rabbit hole if we wanted to. Manufacturers aren't stupid. Let's put it that way. No. The next one on the list, windows, and we gotta move on because these last few ones are pretty standard stuff. And kind of they went in order of importance in my mind. So, windows, very very simple. Windows are going to last about 20 to 25 years typically, depending on what area you live in. If you have a certain historic society that limits what type of windows you can put in. But ultimately, the one thing that is made better today than it used to be is definitely windows. Windows are made much, much better today than what they used to be. If you have old windows in your house, there's a really, really, really good chance that you're losing a shitload of money on your electric bill, your heating and cooling, wherever you're at. So if you're up north, obviously you're trying to heat it more. If you're down here, you're trying to cool it more. And shitty windows will definitely leak insulation. Not leak insulation, but they're just not insulated very well. They can be leaking around the frames, things like that. New windows will definitely help your heating and cooling costs, as well as just the overall look of the home. New windows on a normal size house, cost wise, can run anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000, depending on how many windows you have in your house. So windows are something that's pretty important. So we have an old house that we're redoing over on the west side right now that has all metal windows, and there's even some jealousy windows in there. The old cranks with the glass on glass thing. And we're replacing those. I think we're paying like $12,000 to replace them all, but it's was like 19 windows, I think. It's like 19 windows in this property. Shitload. So there's a lot of windows, and they're all old as dirt. So anyway, and that's an old rental too. So
windows, if you can see through them, keep them. If not, throw them away. What's
pretty standard rule. Pretty standard rule. Any kind of pool stuff. We have a lot of pools in Florida in the South. Do a pool inspection. A lot of times the most common issue is leaking by the filter box. Shockingly to us all, that the filter box technically is not part of the concrete shell of the pool. So it often detaches and it leaks. That's the first place it leaks. If you come into a house that's vacant and you see the pool line and the water level is below the my dog just farted. That sounds terrible. And the water line is below the filter box, I almost guarantee you that there's probably a $2,500 fix on that thing to get that water line up so it doesn't leak out in between the pool shell and the filter box itself. Decking is another one of those things. Decking obviously goes bad on pools from time to time. A lot of different ways to quote it out, get new decking, put in, paint it, power wash it. There's always sorts of ways to kind of refurbish it a little bit if you can. Things like that. So Anything else to add on pool decking and all that stuff?
Pools in general. No, I mean, your liner, either you're going to have a liner down here. You normally have Marcite.
We're specifically talking about in-ground pools. I'm not talking about
in-ground
out-ground
pools.
pools.
So yeah, if you I mean, there's some in-ground pools with some sort of plastic liner,
There.
but again,
Mhm.
check your liner. Find out last time the pool was remarcited or tiled, because again, those have lifespans as well. So
Correct. Yep. Marcite's another one. So
one I could add there.
yep. Okay. We'll hit real quick on kitchens and baths. Obviously, we see this on HGTV. We know that updating needs to happen every 15 to 20 years, typically. You get past 20 years, you're probably pretty dated on your time. So it's I mean, your cabinets are going to be bad. Your flooring is going to be out of date. Everything is going to look like it needs a facelift. You go back to 20 years ago, you act 1999. I think wallpaper was still a thing. At this point, 99.
Wallpaper's coming back.
Oh God, kill me now.
Come on back.
Wallpaper and sponge paint was also big. Sponge painting was the other fad that just. Well, I don't know who invented wallpaper, and I want to kill him. And I don't know who invented sponge painting, but it was something that my mother did a lot as a child. And that was some interesting different colors of sponge paint, sponges everywhere. So things like that. Gonna need to be updated. Okay. Other than that, I had in your appliances. And this is where I want to add in something concerning basically a home warranty system, which is oftentimes something you can offer as a seller and something that you can request as a buyer. In both situations, I think it's a good idea. I'm not necessarily a proponent of keeping that home warranty for the lifespan of you having the house. But in the first year or two, when you move in, something goes bad, you need to get it fixed. Hey, let's go ahead and get it fixed and keep it up to date. And the American Home Shield 210. There's some other different. Those are the two biggest ones. Those are companies that you can pay $700 a year. That if your AC goes out, they'll send out a company. They'll probably band-aid it more than replace it.
They're going to band-aid it until it needs to be
as long
replaced.
as they can. They're going to band-aid it as long as they can. That's what they're going to do.
It's not, yes, you have a home warranty. It's not free for them to come out. You're going to still pay a service charge for them to come out. But where the savings comes in is, okay, you need to replace your HVAC, or your refrigerator. All right, maybe your HVAC was going to cost $4,500. Now it's going to cost you $1,500 or something like that.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to see your big savings.
Yeah, they'll definitely offset the cost on stuff like that. And oftentimes, I think it's a great plan to give to somebody as a seller. I want to offer it in all my listings. Hey, we'll do a home warranty. It's kind of a fail safe. So typically, when somebody buys a new home, they don't have a lot of cash left over, especially if they have to do renovations, things like that. If something does go bad as far as the systems, i.e., pool pumps, appliances, water heater, plumbing, they don't cover septics, I don't think. Because there's way too much.
Not that I've ever heard of, at least.
Yeah, HVACs. They don't cover roofs. They don't cover roofs and septic. They cover most of like your mechanical systems inside the house. So nice to have. Is it a must? No, I think it's a really good positive thing to give with listings. And as a buyer, I really like giving my clients, hey, just if you need anything, call American Home Shield. They're not the fastest. They're never going to be the fastest to get out there. So you kind of got to deal with it, but they can save you some money, especially in that first year or two of you buying your new home, and kind of getting settled in. So, the last thing that people really want to deal with. So the last thing is on my list. The one unspoken part is landscape. How much can that possibly help you, hurt you when selling a home, when buying a home? Landscape is one of those things that we never think about. I'll just have somebody do it. Well, quick story. I have a rental property that the landscaping was just completely overgrown. And it's probably going to cost them somewhere around $2,000 to get everything cut back, remulched over time. Like it's going to cost them, we've already spent $500 on it. I mean, it's going to cost another $300 or $400 here and there. There's just way too much landscaping for one home. Like it's just stuff everywhere. And it's like, keep it simple, keep it classy. And I prefer rock rather than mulch. especially in Florida with the amount of carpenter ants that we really have, and also any kind of mulch around your house attracts wood-destroying organisms. A WDO is one thing required that we have to have for all your FHA loans, so it's required. So why would you put more wood on your property that attracts wood-destroying organisms, which typically all our homes are built out of wood? So why would you do that? I understand that rock is more expensive. I get that.
Good, man. It looks good.
Mulch looks horrible, and you gotta redo it every freaking, every year because it fades and it looks like crap. I'm all for the new rubber stuff, the recycled tire mulch.
Yeah,
I'm all for that. Get on it. Do recycled tire mulch. That's a good idea. And it doesn't, the color doesn't fade typically as fit. I think it does. It just takes a lot longer.
I think they do, and I could be wrong. Maybe I'm imagining this, but I want to say they do some sort of like mulch respraying where like they can almost come out and re-dye that. Could be wrong. Maybe I just made that.
Like
sounds like a good idea if it's not actually.
Why can't you just get it? Why can't you just paint it with a paint sprayer?
Call Matt and I. We got a new company.
Maybe. I don't know.
Just paint the front of your mulch.
Come out and paint your mulch. By the way, we'll paint your grass while we're at it too. We'll make sure we can bring some green shit. We're off in a few weeks, but yeah. Anyway. So yeah, landscaping in general, not rock and mulch, but just keeping your home landscaped well is going to save you some money, and just because curb appeal is huge. People don't, I don't want to sound HGTV all on us here, but curb appeal, and when you do go to sell your house, you go to buy your house, the first impression of your house is what it looks like on the outside. And I think a lot of people look at outdoor projects and they're like, it's so much work. Like, it's just going to keep up. And if you have landscaping that's crazy, you have a lot of it. Like, people just look at that. Like, I understand that the one person, they may like all this stuff planted everywhere, but I got news for you. That is not the norm. Okay. A lot of normal people are very like, hey, yeah, give me a couple trees here, a couple bushes here, a couple flowers here, yada, yada, yada. They don't want stuff planted everywhere. It's a bitch to maintain. So that stuff is be mindful of how much you're planting. Snuck up on me out of nowhere. Keep an eye on how much you're planting.
You're talking about.
What's that?
All those flowers you're talking about, giving all.
Yeah, it's pollen. Yeah. So just thinking about sniffing flowers makes me want to sneeze in general. But so just really keeping up with your landscape. If you're buying a house that needs a landscape flip, any advice on that? Like, buy a house with terrible landscaping. First thing you do.
Tear it out.
Tear it out.
No, yeah. I mean, so in regards to tearing out, one thing to be mindful of is sprinkler systems. House I bought last year had wonderful landscape around the pool, but the types of palms that were in there were sago palms. They produce a berry that's poisonous to dogs. We've got dogs. I'm going to pull those out. Well, I knew that there was sprinklers intertwined within there, but it's one of those things like, we're going to spend countless hours and money to try to avoid that, or let's just rip it out. So we ripped it out. Ultimately, we ended up busting some sprinkler pipes. So if there's a sprinkler system that you don't think you're going to use, still make sure you check the system, or at least know where they run, because otherwise you could, like I did, cost yourself a bunch of money down the line. So I got one sago palm I need to take out still in the backyard, but it hasn't produced any berries yet, so I'm not really worried about it. Good.
Because it's getting like drowned out by another palm tree or something. So Florida props, #Florida props. So other than that, man, that's about all I got. I hope we gave you some decent insight on kind of what to look for when you're buying a house, thinking about when you're selling it, what the lifespan of things are typically, when you're due for an upgrade on your home. Any of those things I think that are valuable for people that, sometimes you just don't sit back to think about. I hope we gave you some information on that. So you got anything else?
I got nothing.
All right, man.
It's rock and roll.
Well, I will see you on Friday afternoon, and we will go from there, my man.
That's all right.
Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, there's a few things I'd like you to do. Subscribe, leave a review, and head over to nobsrealestatepodcast.com where you can connect with Matt and I on all of the platforms we're on. Also, if you could do us a favor, leave a message letting us know what you enjoyed about the episode and what you'd like to hear about going forward.
Publish this bitch.